This is the ABQ Business Podcast with your host, Jason Rigby. Each week we'll interview visionary business leaders to inspire the creative power and spirit that's in every entrepreneur. Discussing strengths, weaknesses, strategies, systems, and the problems we can all solve together for a new future for local small business.
Hey guys, this is Jason Rigby with the Albuquerque Business Podcast. Really excited today. I have Drew Tulchin. Drew, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Cool. And I have you on the podcast today, and I was really excited. You had helped with Meow Wolf. We'll get into that. Electric Playhouse. You're working with them. And then we're going to even talk about robots, which I think is going to be interesting. But I want people to know a little bit about you. I know that you've helped startups here in New Mexico. You've also, your expertise include capital raising, business development, building relationships, sales. You set up systems in business, and I want to get into that a little bit with you too. Some government funding. You've also, one of the cool things that I like is you have an MBA from University of Washington. I moved from Seattle area, Tacoma area to here. How was it? How long were you on in Washington?
Yeah, I was up in Seattle for 6 years.
Oh, so you got the rain then.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, there aren't that many folks between New Mexico and Seattle. It's not a usual connection spot, right? And my first
Right.
year, I went up there for graduate school. My first year up there, 89 days of straight rain, man. That's hard for New
Yeah, that's how it is. They say that Washingtonians don't tan, they rust. So
Oh, nice one. Yeah.
yeah, so that's always funny to me. So I kind of want to get into, if we can, because
Yeah.
I want to get into what's going on right now. We have COVID-19, we have businesses. I just saw today in the news the bankruptcies that are happening out there. Hertz just announced, 45 minutes ago, that it's probably going to be, tomorrow. And there's a lot of things that are going on in the business scheme of things as far as, economic fitness. And we were talking about that off air. What are you seeing in businesses, especially here in New Mexico?
Yeah. And thank you. And thank you for the work you're doing for small business here in New Mexico. I think it's awesome. And I'm really proud to be part of it. And if I can help the people who are listening and the work that you're doing, I really think that if we can all come together and
Yes.
can do just a little bit, that's going to make things so much better for everyone. And so when you ask me what I'm seeing, I live up in Santa Fe. I work down in Albuquerque. And there's no question that with tourism wiped off the map, there's a lot of businesses hurting. There's a lot of people hurting. And we can't get away from the fact that our neighbors could be in real trouble.
Right.
And then you look at the national news and what's the New Mexico stories that are coming out? It's our brothers and sisters in Navajo Nation and in Grand
Right.
Gallup. And we really need to help them because the weakest link of the chain means the chain breaks. And
Right.
all can help a little bit. If you all do a little bit, then the pain's not as bad. And what I mean by that is, are you eating out once or twice a week, even though it might be expensive for your family, so that you can help the local business that you used to frequent a lot pay their employees? Can you make sure that you're buying local instead of going to Amazon and getting something because it's really convenient in 3 clicks? Are you asking your neighbors from a socially distanced, safe location with a mask on, do they need something? Maybe you killed an elk or an animal and you got a bunch of stuff in the freezer and you could trade that with somebody. I mean, there's
Right.
things that aren't going to make the national news, aren't awful stories. And we could do wonderful things here coming together and helping each other out and being a real community.
No, I love that. And a lot of people don't think of those things, as far as when they're thinking of people coming together in community. And I know, you see some of the negative aspects of it. Everybody's road rage is happening. And then you see, the way people are driving and stuff like that. And I know everybody, when we have fear, that can escalate things. And for me, it's business owners, when I talk to them, it seems like there's this underlying of not knowing what to do.
Yeah.
They haven't put any systems in place. They're not sure. What are you seeing? Are you seeing any successful businesses? Are you seeing things where they're being proactive?
Yeah, good question. And I think that that's the key. I think the proactivity is hard because we aren't getting very clear information, right?
Right.
And I think instead of people going to the ambiguity and the fear and the concern about understanding, I think if you make a good plan, you can then act upon that plan. And a couple of things that I mean around that, like there's a lot of folks, small businesses, who are really worried about being able to cover all their expenses. Well, in New Mexico, if you end up vacating a property, who's going to go in there right now? Go
Right.
to your landlord and just have a human, honest conversation. Maybe in New York, there's some really awful landlords that are going to kick people out because they know they can get somebody else in there. But in New Mexico, if you're vacant, and you go to business, that's hurting all of us. And,
Yes.
yeah, the landlord, maybe they borrowed money and they owe a bank, but they should be having that same conversation with that institution. And so, coming together and figuring out what you can do together. Could you defer rent? Could you pay in kind or some sort of exchange? But just assuming that you have these awful looming bills and that therefore you're going to go out of business, that's stressful for you and your family. That's stressful for your employees, and that's not going to help our state.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And it's kind of almost that viewpoint of when, a crisis happens, can you be selfless or selfish,
Yeah, that's really nice, and it really shows people real character in times of difficulty, right? Um,
Right, right.
a shout out to our New Mexican bankers. I think at the national level, the chain banks or the national banks, they didn't do a good job with PPP. But there's
Right.
human New Mexicans here, or New Mex ICANs here, and a
I
lot of
love that.
really really did a good job. A shout out to Century Bank, New Mexico Bank and Trust, Enterprise Bank, formerly LAB. I saw bankers from each of those institutions working really hard.
Hmm.
Businesses here, and they deserve our respect. I think our credit unions did a great job. And then I think our CDFIs, our non-bank lenders, that's DreamSpring, West, and the Loan Fund. All of those folks deserve huge shout outs and have a lot more to offer us in the business community here in Albuquerque and also around the state.
Yeah, and I'd seen that. I talked to a couple business owners, and they had large accounts, and I had talked to a dealership, and they had flooring plans with like Bank of America and all this, and they turned around and had to go to the local banks here to get their loans because Bank of America was just kind of blowing them off, like no,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, we'll get to it, type of a thing. They didn't even have a bank account with this, and I wish I knew the bank. It's local here in Albuquerque, so I can give them a shout out. I'll do it
Yeah.
in the show notes. I'll find out and then put it in the show notes. But this
Great.
banker just went to bat for them and spent hours and hours and hours and was able to get it for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Main Bank is another one I talked to that's done really well for some folks. And again, a shout out to our credit unions, which are owned by all of us. So being able to have a conversation with a banker, you asked what can you do to be proactive. Do you know your banker by name? If you don't,
Right.
you need to. And
Mm.
do that is start with whoever you do. If you know the teller, if you know the branch manager, if you know a loan officer, but you need to have a human being in a bank, and you need
Yeah.
someone who knows their institution and can navigate.
No,
And
I love that. Yes.
if you don't have that, you deserve it. And it's something you just need to ask for. Sometimes it's the woe is me thing here in New Mexico. I've been here 12 years, so I love it. And I'm a newcomer, and I'll always be insulted compared to some of us who've been here for generations, right? But, you can be a little pushy. I've got some East Coast roots. You can be polite, but still ask for something that you have a right to do. Right.
Right. Exactly. Right. Yeah. I hope that. I know we have I heard somebody say the other day that we don't do social distancing. We just do physical distancing, and I hope that
Mm.
we can get to the point to where we have these, in times of crisis like this, and then after this, that we don't forget that human touch is important, especially in business.
Yeah. Yeah. Human touch and relationships. But then nurturing those relationships.
Right.
How many of us know our neighbors, but haven't really had a conversation with our neighbor or another business or one of our vendors? And so thinking about our small business folks and our supply chains, right? So who we're buying from, who we're selling to. Have you had just to check in conversation with your 10 largest customers or your 5 largest vendors. And
Mm.
there's things that could do. Could a vendor extend their cycle or their payment system for you by 30 days? Could they give you stuff on spec for 30 or 60 days so that you could sell their stuff and then pay them back? Uh, this is unusual times, and business as usual is not going to win the day.
Right, exactly. Or running and hiding, and then hoping
Mm,
that this all goes over. Kind of, they call it the ostrich effect. And
yes.
sticking sticking our head in the sand sometimes doesn't work. But I kind of want to get into a little bit about moving past what's happening right now, and kind of get into some of the because I know you've been influential, in helping Meow Wolf, and then now you're working with Electric Playhouse, and I know a
Yeah.
lot of people have gone to that, and it's really exciting. Can you talk a little bit about it?
Sure. Yeah. Well, shout out to our Meow Wolf folks. It was a real honor, to be the MBA amongst 100 artists, to really see a vision come about. And it's done so much for other artists in the area and for northern New Mexico. And it's going to be reopening soon. And so if you haven't been for a while, it's a chance to go back. And I'm really excited about Electric Playhouse. Really great group of people, very sincere. And Electric Playhouse is in West Bluff there, just off of Coors and I-40. And they had just opened in January. So getting closed by COVID in the middle of March was a kick in the teeth. But the whole idea is, imagine you're in a video game, right? So you're like Wreck-It Ralph. And so you don't need a headset. You don't need anything in your hand. You can just step in, and there's projectors and there's sensors. So, in a COVID world, this is actually a good thing because they're offering touchless games and social distance safe activities. So they have a bar, they have a restaurant, and then you buy a ticket, you go in, and there's a bunch of digital games. They've got kind of an electronic soccer shuffleboard game. They've got a dancing thing. They've got a Running Man game. And it's just family fun during the day for all ages. And then at night, you go in there, and it's a chance for young adults or adults of all ages to have a beverage and to do some cool stuff with friends that you haven't done before.
That's awesome. And now, was Electric Playhouse, was it something that was created locally here in New Mexico, and then and then did you help bring it to fruition? How did you get involved with it?
Yeah, so it's a local story. Two Burqueños, two dads with young kids. They got together. Brandon Garrett was with Decker Parrish Sabatini, DPS, which is an architecture firm, and John Mark Collins, our CEO and co-founder. He was a digital maven and done a lot of work with a company called Storylab Interactive. And they came together of the fact that the activities for young families with kids was bowling alley, children's museum, park, zoo, trampoline park, repeat. And the joke amongst
Yes.
yeah, and so the joke amongst them was with the spouses, like who had to draw straws for who lost, who had to go to the trampoline park yet again, you know. And it's great that we have these things. They're healthy, active play. There's 6 trampoline parks in Albuquerque, so that's great.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I know it's crazy, but to have healthy, active play, to get kids all away from their devices, to have kids have something they've never seen before and have to go figure it out, and have a little bit of wonder in their lives, and the fact that nationwide we're just going to have tons of empty retail space. So this confluence of families doing activities together that would be fun and off their devices, and place and opportunities to fill empty real estate. That's what the Electric Playhouse is about.
No, I love that. And you also, this is interesting, and this is something I kind of wanted to dive a little bit in with you. You're also helping build with robots.
Yeah, great startup here in Albuquerque. The two co-founders are experienced, seasoned entrepreneurs, Chris Zymek and Matthew Ennis. They just came together. They've been working on this idea for a couple of years, what they call cobotting. And it's the idea that you can use a robot not to replace human labor, but to make things better, safer, faster for the humans and allow them to avoid bad work and do more of the work that they would like to do. And Build with Robots was working on a painting bot where the robot could take care of some of this worst part of painting, the dirty part, or if it's a chemical based paint, so it's, a human being would otherwise have to wear a respirator around it because of the fumes. And then with COVID, they've just pivoted, or we've pivoted because I'm working with them. And what we've got is we've got an R2D2 device, and it sprays a chemical that disinfects and makes the space safe for someone to then come in and do their regular cleaning work. And so Build with Robots is making our local businesses safe for workers to be in, and reduces the incidence for COVID.
That is awesome to even think about that. I mean, it's so creative, to have a machine go in and, lay the groundwork before, a human has to go in there. I mean, just the risk factor alone, I think that would be, not just profitable, but in the sense that it's helping mankind.
Exactly. Yeah, very well said. And that's why it's so exciting. And I'm really pleased to have been invited to try to help them out. We're working on some banking relationships, some capital with investment. And then the other group that deserves a huge shout out is our state and local economic development folks, New Mexico EDD, or Economic Development Department. They've done a really good job to try to be there for businesses. There's a program called JTIP, which is a job training incentive program. And my understanding is at the last meeting, there was something like 15 businesses that were applying to state for a reimbursement opportunity to train new employees. So we do have businesses here in New Mexico that are hiring. Both Electric Playhouse, Build with Robots are hiring, and others. And the folks who are helping make that happen deserve our praise and our support.
No, I love that. And off air, we were talking about New Mexico, and then you were talking, as far as like there's entertainment, there's science, but there's this business side of things. Can you talk to what the relationship with the state is, and new business coming in?
Yeah. One of the challenges we have is that our local economy is not very well diversified. So historically, the state's interaction with American government, right? Because there was so much history here with people before the American government, was because of science or public agencies, the military. And that brought a lot of money to the state and a lot of people to the state, and that was valuable. We also have a lot of tourism here, which of course is a difficult thing because it's cyclical, very illustrated now. We've also
Right.
had oil and gas, but sadly, oil and gas is challenged right now too. So, what are we as a community with 3.2, 3.4 million people? What can we all do to come together to help each other? And the answer is small business. We're not going to have a Fortune 500 company. We only have one presence of one Fortune 500, and they don't even have their headquarters here. They're in El Paso, I believe, or Texas. So we've got to help each other and buy and sell from each other. And we've got to grow food here and sell it to ourselves. And so the state is good about understanding that. And they have some quality people. They have a very small team, but they're very approachable. And so if you have a good idea and you're looking to grow, you deserve to get partners for that. It does take time. They're not going to write a check. They're not going to gift you money. But if you're doing hard work and you've done your organizing to put together a plan and put together some structure, there's no reason why the state of New Mexico, which is funded by all of us as taxpayers, can't help support your business to hire more New Mexicans so you can grow, so you can help more New Mexicans.
Yeah, and what are the things like I know you've been helping startups here in New Mexico. What are you seeing, with startups coming to New Mexico, or startups that are happening, through the because I know startups are coming out of the labs, and then you have UNM and all that. What is it? Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? What are you seeing as far as, because I would like you said, the lifeblood of any state is small business. I truly believe that, and I know tech is it's only going to get, I mean, it's going to encompass our life, especially as we look at COVID, and like you had mentioned with the Electric Playhouse and all this. We're going to see this more and more. How are tech startups, and what are you seeing with startups here in New Mexico?
I think it's a really good question. I don't know that I'm the expert at that, but let me give you three observations and you can tell me how they sound. Number one is what I'll call 1099 nation, right? So independent workers, independent contractors, you get a 1099 instead of a W-2. And we've got a bunch of folks here, either because we kind of have a Western independence, people who want to work for themselves, or we have people who are living here part time and they're working, their work is now elsewhere. And I think COVID has facilitated or exacerbated or promoted that. So you have a bunch of people who can be independent workers. And for New Mexico to help be as friendly towards that as possible, good broadband, good internet, lower taxes. GRT is a little bit of a puzzle there. And then 1099 folks to buy and sell from each other. So if I am a graphic artist, can I partner with a web developer? And together we can do more work than I would only be able to secure by myself. So that's 1099 nation. That's trend number one. Trend number two is you've got people who are spin-offs of good ideas. So they've got a day job, they get an inspiration in their day job, and then they want to take their new idea full time. So I've recently met a great Santa Fe company called B Public. And B Public was started by a husband and wife and a third business partner who's a friend of theirs. And it's prefab wall construction, but it's green construction. So they're making a better mousetrap. And Jonah is an architect and Edie is the business side. And they understood green business and they were getting the same requests through the architecture firm. So the architecture firm was able to incubate an R&D and then spin out this new business called Be Public. And so that's a great example of something that has been evolving around here. And it takes a lot of bravery to do that, right? So that's point number two. And then point number three is the fact that a tech company can be successful here, can have its headquarters here, and can stay here. So Electric Playhouse, built with robots, Descartes Labs up in Santa Fe is a great example. And there's a number of other smaller companies where you don't have to go to Silicon Valley, right? You don't have to sort of Mecca, that you really can do your business here. And what we need is New Mexicans who were trained here, were educated here. We need them to come back, man. I mean, COVID makes it time to leave the big cities and come on back home. And there's jobs to be here and help be a part of making some great community.
No, I love that because I've been hearing people talking about that, and I know Twitter just announced, I think they're leaving, Silicon Valley, at least part of it, and moving to Austin, Texas. So but when you think of cities in the West, and I always tell everybody this, Albuquerque's kind of we have plenty of land. It's inexpensive. The weather is amazing. You have, Denver is filling up. Like, I think there's 25,000 people that move in, every month there. There's really nothing besides Boise, Idaho, and Albuquerque. That's about the only areas on the West that are available and ready for businesses to come in and grow.
Yeah. Yeah. And the state had a net negative migration a few years ago. And I think we've reversed the trend. And there's no question there's still some barriers here. But because it's such a manageable community, one good addition really makes a difference. And if people approach a puzzle with the positive element of how they're going to create a solution and let me assume good intent in others and also a collaborative spirit, then I believe a lot more can be done than kind of the woe is me, crab in the basket, or Mananaville that I think is part of the local identity here. And I think we've moved past that. I don't know that serves us anymore.
Yeah, I talked to a business owner, and he was born and raised here, and his family had been here. And he said we have to get to the point where we look at it as, and he used a reference as like a pie, like an apple pie or something. And he said, there's if we have an abundance mentality, there's tons of pies. There's not just one pie that everybody gets a little piece. Until we can realize how big the pie actually is, and that there's abundance out there, then we can get and not foster this. I need to get mine, you can't have yours, type of mentality that, and we've seen this with technology, and we see this with new companies, like you said, that are getting new mouse traps that are coming out there. With creativity comes abundance,
Yeah, no, really well said. The scarcity mentality is limiting. And in the finance world, what you talk about with the pie is you want to grow the whole pie because that'll grow each person's slice. And
Right.
so not only can you have more slices, but you get more pie. That sounds great to
Right.
me.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and I know we only have about 5, 6 more minutes, so I want to get into some things that you're seeing when, especially whether startups or businesses that are starting in New Mexico, and I know you've been a part of many. I want to kind of get your expert opinion on what you're seeing, whether mistakes that are made or things that are done really well. For these
Mm.
last 5 minutes, what are some of the things that could help somebody that may be starting a business or looking at putting a startup here in Albuquerque? What are some of the things you're seeing?
Mm. That's a really good question. So let me give a couple, and maybe if we want to talk again in the future, or I'll give some resources and we can have some links so people can find more information. Um, I think the first thing is there are institutions to help you, so you don't have to do this by yourself. I had a lot of benefits. I got schooled in this. I've had a bunch of years of experience, and so there's a bunch of stuff that I learned over time. That if you're doing this for the first time, it's really hard to know. So the
Right,
business development centers or SBDCs are there for you. We have some great incubators in every city in New Mexico. So you can look up incubators New Mexico, like the Santa Fe Business Incubator, and in Albuquerque, there's quite a few. I mentioned our CDFIs before, so West. Full disclosure, I'm on the board, so it's certainly an organization I care about. But they're providing training. Even today in our COVID world, they're doing remote training. Most of it's for free or very inexpensive. So you can certainly learn about stuff you don't know about. And then ask questions. There's a lot of people who professionally are good at this stuff, your CPAs, your lawyers, and most of them are really friendly and understanding. And don't be intimidated and don't feel like you're going to get charged right away. I've met some really great professional trade people here who are willing to give their time in education because they know if they're kind, they're going to win business. And so they're not worried about it. So
right.
ask questions and seek the professionals. I think that's really important. The other element is sometimes you end up cutting corners here in New Mexico, right? Like, let's just throw things in the Arroyo instead of actually paying money to take something to the dump. Or, I don't really need to pay taxes, so I'll just pay cash, or I'll do this under the table. And, that's understandable. Nobody likes to give money away for taxes. But if you do things right from the beginning, if you register the business, if you work with an accountant, if you get a bank account number and actually get a business bank account number, even though there's accountability there, if you do these basic fundamental steps, ultimately you're building a strong foundation that you can build a solid business upon. Otherwise, you end up with a bad foundation and things just crumble.
Yeah, I've seen that. I don't know how many times that's such wise advice because I've seen that over and over again. When you start skipping steps or cutting corners, next thing when something does happen that goes your way, just like you said, and that foundation's not there, then you're not that proposal that could have gotten accepted, but you did this, this, and this, and it just starts building one brick after brick, that's a falsehood, and then somebody looks at it from the outside looking in, and they can see that web of deceit, that and what's worse is they put it upon themselves. Well, Drew,
Yeah.
I really am excited to have you on the podcast. I want to have you on more. Would love to. I'm going to. I know we talked on LinkedIn and a couple other people, and I've been hearing about you and the work that you've been doing, and I appreciate you and looking at sustainable business and making sure that. And I can tell with your heart, that you're looking at business with a conscious. You want to have a business that has a conscious and support that and help that and be a part of that. And I just want to thank you for what you're doing in New Mexico. I know there are a lot of people here in New Mexico that may look at business and say like, well, it's the second, state of, the worst state and all this stuff. But we do need people like you. And I appreciate the amount of time that you've been here in New Mexico. And it's harder. It's more of a grind. And I know for what I'm seeing and the excitement that is in New Mexico, I believe we're on that beginning stage of seeing something great here in the state.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. If people want to check out more stuff, I've got a consulting website, Upspring Associates. There's a bunch of educational stuff that people can check out there. I'm happy to be helpful if people are trying to help others. I appreciate your shout out. I think you deserve those kudos too. And I really feel strongly that if we can all help each other a little bit, we can do a lot better. And so let's share ways of making that happen. Share and celebrate the success stories that you're getting. Maybe we can get a little chatter going about this podcast here with comments and stuff after it's posted. And then very much look forward to more opportunities to help out or come on down to Electric Playhouse and see us, or take a look for Build with Robots, which hopefully you'll be hearing about more soon.
Yeah, no, thank you, Drew. I appreciate it. And it's LinkedIn kind of the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn's great. So I use it a lot. So feel free to drop a note there and just share. If someone's got a question, be explicit. The more specific someone is with a question, the easier it is for me to get back to people quickly.
Okay, perfect. And I'll make sure I put your link on that. Well, thanks, Drew. I appreciate it. And I hope that you and your family stay safe, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Take care. Green chili in every pot, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Albuquerque Business Podcast. And thanks to our sponsor, RigbyDigital.com. Make sure to subscribe and share. And go to abqpodcast.com. Get show notes, resources, and links to everything we talked about today to help you navigate your journey as an entrepreneur and business owner.